Minister of Transportation rekindles hope on timely completion of Lagos-Ibadan rail line.
Latest April, we'll be out of this place. But we are no longer giving ourselves the time. The contractor is the person giving us the time.
National Emergency Management Agency distributes relief materials to fire victims in Yobe.
Nigerian Army appraises Operation Crocodile Smile.
And this exercise, Crocodile Smile, as well as I Am Apatuma, as well as Ajulogo Udo, they have been operated along this concept.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss reviving Nigeria's ailing refineries.
Nigeria is reputed to be the largest oil-producing nation in Africa and the sixth largest in the world, with her oil wealth estimated to be more than 22 billion barrels in reserves, domiciled mostly around the Niger Delta region.
Of course, Kirian, Nigeria also produces about 2 million barrels of crude oil per day. That's at peak production. But fortunately, Nigeria also has to import more than 80%, if not 90%, of refined petroleum products to meet its current domestic needs.
Well, this is certainly because Nigeria's four major existing refineries in Port Harcourt and Ogbele in Rivers State, as well as those of Warri and Kaduna, have a cumulative refining capacity for 445,000 barrels of crude, which can barely meet 20% of Nigeria's petrol consumption.
And despite billions of dollars spent over the years for routine turnaround maintenance, these refineries have, as it were, remained comatose and underperforming. And Nigeria is reputed to be the only member of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, that imports refined petroleum products, in particular petrol.
Of course, Kinsley, between the late 80s and the early 90s, we used to hear about turnaround maintenance, that perhaps they resulted to nothing. And many Nigerians find it absurd that Nigeria still imports petrol despite her reputation in crude oil production, and the problem have been largely attributed to lack of prompt and timely turnaround maintenance of existing refineries.
Well, experts would say that a refinery is built and designed to produce defined quantities and quality of oil products in a continuous manner for some 24 to 36 months based on proper maintenance. However, for continued optimum performance, such a refinery will require systematic shutdown for a period to carry out what is referred to as a turnaround maintenance. But when such a turnaround maintenance is delayed or otherwise not performed, the performance of the refinery itself ultimately declines.
Now, the questions to ask will be, why are Nigeria's refineries grossly underperforming? Should the refineries be rehabilitated or outrightly privatized? What should be done to get Nigeria back to optimum refining capacity to meet the growing consumption of petroleum products?
Well, pertinent questions you have raised there, Kirian, and the point is that there are much older refineries elsewhere around the world that are working optimally, if not maximally. And yet, Nigeria's own refineries that are only a few decades old with incessant turnaround maintenance have refused to deliver on their installed capacity. So, as we're discussing the revival of Nigeria's early refineries today on Good Morning Nigeria, I would like you to stay tuned. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. I welcome you to the program. We're broadcasting live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, and we're here at the Abuja headquarters studios of the NTA.
And I'm Karen Umail. Thank you for waking up with us this morning for this morning menu. And this edition, of course, will have the complimentary segments as usual, and that's newspaper review, business polls, and others. For now, let's join our colleague Nolene Ebil Ame for the morning news. Hello, Nolene.
Hello, Kirian. Good morning to you and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the news. The Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, is optimistic that the entire stretch of the Lagos-Ibadan rail line will be completed before the end of April 2020. While on another round of inspection of the 157-kilometer rail project, the minister directed the contractor to integrate the narrow and standard rail gauge to save costs and ensure timely completion.
The other things they are still expecting from China, the pipes, the cables, all sorts of things they expect from China. They've started arriving. If they arrive, they say give us 1 to 2 months, we should be able to complete those stations. Latest April, we'll be out of this place. We're no longer giving ourselves the time. The contractor is the person giving us the time. Don't forget there are 2 contracts here. Most people are forgetting there are 2 contracts. The first contract is Abuja Meta to Ibadan. That's the first contract. Then I came up with the idea that, listen, you don't have railways that don't end up in the seaport. So that's the extension that's the big challenge now.
The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has distributed relief materials for onward distribution to victims of the fire disaster in Yobe Potash Market to cushion the effects of the disaster. The Director General of the agency, Mustafa Maihaja, led NEMA's delegation to the scene of the incident.
This is market. People have lost their businesses. So what we need to do to uplift their businesses will come later. Steps are being taken at all times, and a reduction in the consequences of disaster or even occurrence of disaster is assured.
The European Union and Oxfam are funding a social investments project in northern Nigeria. The project targets improvement in food security and resilience of vulnerable persons.
The last 3 years, I have been seeing it for not almost to 12 sacks or 10. But now, for last year, I have raised more than 20. We planted over 600 trees in Government Girls Secondary School, Wasagu, in order to fight against this climate change.
On security, the Nigerian Army has upscaled the ongoing exercise Crocodile Smile 4 in Takwa Bay in Lagos State, with the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, embarking on an operational tour of the area.
Must continue to train to support the civil authority when the situation arises. We train hard now, as when the time requires us to go for the real operation, it's going to be very easy.
On safety, the Federal Road Safety Corps has reacted to a trending video of an unfortunate road traffic crash that occurred in Ibadan recently, leading to the death of a staff of the Corps and 1 other person in Oluyole Unit Command. In a statement, the Corps refuted insinuations from the trending video that the FISC patrol vehicle was in motion at the time of the accident. The FISC explained that the officials of the Corps on routine monitoring and control of traffic of the set there were approached by a truck driver who intended to make an inquiry from one of the members of the team when a Mercedes-Benz ran into the patrol vehicle and in the process killed the marshal attending to the driver of the truck, 1 other person, and left another Corps official seriously injured. The FISC says the alleged reckless driver has been taken to court and charged accordingly. The 12th International Arts and Craft Expo, organized by the National Council for Arts and Culture, has been a convergence of cultures from all over the world. Nations and states who participated are anticipating stronger bilateral ties with Nigeria.
Nigeria is a great country. Nigeria has a rich culture and tradition that, if it's open, cannot be compared with any country in the world.
And culture brings peace. I pray that the peace we are all praying and yearning for, which we are enjoying now in Nigeria, will extend to all the other countries and the world at large.
President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed solidarity with the government and people of Kenya and the Democratic Republic of Congo over the deadly flood disasters and devastating mudslides wreaking havoc in some parts of their countries. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu says, in separate messages of sympathy and solidarity to the leaders of Kenya and DRC, two countries most hit by the recent incidents, President Buhari extends the sympathy of Nigerians to the victims of these deadly and devastating disasters. The Nigerian leader expressed sadness over the loss of lives and the economic and social implication to the country, and the president told the leaders of Kenya and the Democratic Republic of Congo that the hearts and prayers of all Nigerians are with those affected. And those are the news highlights for now. The program continues with Kieran and Kinsley after this break. I am Nolin Ebel Ame. Good morning.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now it's time for us to take some business stories, and here's our correspondent, Kolo Mohammed.
The average growth of medical tourism in Nigeria is put at 20% annually. In 2013, 34,522 Nigerian tourists visited India, out of which 15,328 were medical tourists. An estimated 700 Nigerian doctors move to Europe annually. This leads to loss of huge foreign exchange and medical workforce.
We are not saying that those who can afford it, in order to save our economy, should sit down at home and die. No. Your health is your right. You can spend your money the way you wish. But we can equally bring the same medical care here and make sure that our health system is strong enough to provide the same kind of services that you want to achieve when you get out of the country. If that happens, it creates jobs, the money circulates within the economy. That which would have been wasted outside will be used to improve our infrastructure. Our complaints about other countries being better than our own will become a thing of the past. The medical personnel who are all running away because the healthcare system here is very poor will have to come back. Because it's never better anywhere outside your home.
Balkisu Magoro brings us up to speed on the imperatives needed to gainfully engage Nigerian youths for self-reliance.
If a child is born today and up to the age of 18, with that child, if the child lives to the age of 18 and has gone through education, would that child be of economic value to their country where they're from? Okay? And would they get, when it comes to the health issue, would the child be given the right health care from the mother's stomach, starting from a mother, till the age of 5? Would they survive past the age of 5? And so all that would play a role towards how a nation will be measured. And so when you look at that, you would not say, you know, the human capital index, as it's been measured now by the UN, would be totally different. It's not by per earning of what somebody earns, but how much can these individuals, you know, contribute to the society.
The week's activity on the floor of the Nigerian stock market opens today. And as always, NDA Business News will bring you closing figures subsequently. Those are the notes upon which we open our business reportage for this week. My name is Kolo Muhammad. Be with you again soon.
Thank you, Kolo, for that report. We appreciate that. Next on Good Morning Nigeria is Newspaper Review.
Well, today, our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Tebe, is right here with us at the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Nigeria.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Yeah. Okay, let's begin with the leadership newspaper. From top to bottom, Senate revisit financial autonomy for local government with 2 riders to repeal state local government joint account. Lawyers CSO's back move. And the lead story, PMB, that's President Muhammad Buhari, orders completion of Ajokuta Steel. And 2 riders to that, Rep. Summon PAMSEC Director over Abuja Zaria Road. Theft, litigation, delaying completion of Lagos-Ibadan Railway, says the federal government. The story is on page 4. And now to the, on the foot of the leadership newspaper. Hate speech bill, death penalty will be amended. That's on page 23. Advocate writes Interpol, federal government over detention. The story is on page 6. Ownership crisis, foreign investors to remain in AEDC. 25, page 25 is where you get that story. And then PMB orders probe of Kogi woman leader's murder is on page 2.
Let's take a look also at the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper. An earpiece beside the nameplate, Boko Haram, that's the kicker. Army set to deploy invisible equipment, that's page 4. Lead story says 2023 presidency, ACF backs northern candidate. And then right at the foot of the front page, Zamfara. Hold ex-governor responsible for 3 million illegal arms. That's according to the incumbent Matawale, details on page 44. Air Peace, that's the kicker. Fresh facts reveal legitimate aircraft purchase. Details on page 6. And then right there, the strip headline, Malabo scam. AGF, that's Attorney General of the Federation, and EFCC clash over advocates extradition. Details on page 40. Bayo.
Let's start with the directives given by Mr. President. There are 2 of them. One is the marching orders given to the Minister of Mines and Steel Development that Ajokuta Steel Company must begin to function. Minister of Mine and Steel, Olamide Kadigi, said that part of the President's directive is also to ensure that they solve the long, intractable problem of solid minerals in Nigeria. The ministry is to ensure that Nigerians who rely on this sector as part of the initiative of government to diversify the economy. In this regard, the minister says that Nigeria's downstream mineral policy, first of its kind, will soon be unveiled, and it will enable both Nigerian and foreign investors to take great advantage of creating massive employment and wealth creation, as well as industrialization from that sector. The other directive given by the President came from his outrage over the murder of Madam Achejuno Abu at the Wada Aro campaign wall in Kogi State. The Madam Acheju is the woman's leader of the People's Democratic Party, and she was burned in her home. The statement by the President's special advisor on publicity, Femi Adesina, says the President has charged security agencies to do all they can thoroughly and expeditiously to investigate the perpetrators of such evil acts. And he says that the President has decried the act and says that such indecent behavior should not be part of our politics. The President says that no life should be taken wantonly under any guise. The fact that this reprehensible action occurred 2 days after voting should occasion condemnation from all of us. It says such primitive behavior should not be accepted even in the arena of politics. Talking about the airpiece, a Georgia court in the United States Department has issued an arrest order for Mr. Allen Onyema over what is described as bank fraud and money laundering of a sum of about 20 million. The allegations involve moving of funds from Nigeria through U.S. banks, but allegedly using false documentation. The charge, count 1, reads that there is conspiracy to commit bank fraud, and a co-accused person has been announced. He is the Chief Administrative Officer of Airpeace, Mr. Ejiro Gene Egaga. However, Mr. Allen Onyema has refuted the charge and says that all the transactions he did in the purchase of his aircraft had been through the Central Bank of Nigeria. And he says he's ready to defend his integrity. The other story that is of noteworthy is a member of the All Progressive Congress in Ebonyi State, Charles Okwenya, has filed a suit in the Federal High Court in Abakaliki. He's seeking the expunging of Section 1371 and 1821 of the Constitution. His grounds is that clause that limits the president and the governor to 2 terms is discriminatory. He has compared it to the tenure of those in the legislature that have no limit, and he says that provision is also a violation of the Charter of African Human Rights, especially Section 42(1)(a) and Article 2(3) of the African Charter, for which Nigeria is a signatory. He says that the Section 1371 and 1821 are null and void and should be expunged. Defendants in this case are the Clerk of the National Assembly, the National Assembly itself, and the Attorney General of the Federation. You recall that Garba Shehu early this month had cause to denounce some cause that there should be a 3rd term. A similar thing happened during Obama's last term. Towards the end, we said they were at the campaign when he was supporting the Democratic candidate. They were saying 4 more years, 4 more years. And he said, no, that is the end. The Constitution does not allow that. Politicians will always fly a kite.
Exactly. But there are 2 items, that really struck me. First is the murder of a woman leader in Kogi State, PDP women's leader in Kogi State. That was, it's absurd to hear that a woman, a lady, a Nigerian lady, was burnt in her house. And there's a similar story also trending, where a grandmother killed, a mother killed her grandchild because she didn't like the husband of the 2 months old. So, baby. This kind of killing, and it's unbelievable. And many Nigerians are wondering why this kind of spate of killing is taking place, not by armed robbers or kidnappers, as case may be, but by immediate relations, people who relate to one another politically, or even people who are bloodly related, as we had in that lady's story.
And the sad story with the grandmother is that she had objections about the husband of the daughter, and the daughter insisted on marrying the girl, and so the way she felt getting back to them was to kill the granddaughter. It's so cruel.
2 days old. 2-day-old grandchild. Well, the question is, if she has been arrested, as to say the grandmom, have they drafted the charges? Because this is a premeditated act. No question about that. Draft the charges and let the Attorney General or the DPP of the state ensure that there's diligent prosecution. There's nothing emotive about this, that, she was not enamored of the prospective husband of her daughter, and therefore she tried to take the life of the issue arising from the union or the liaison between the man and her daughter. So it's an offense has, on the face of it, been committed. So they take her into custody and get her through the court system very rapidly. Exactly. Very rapidly. But the other one, the one on the 3rd term, it's curious because President Muhammadu Buhari was at the NEC meeting of the APC on Friday, and he categorically said, look, the Constitution limits my ability to seek a 3rd term. And of course, he went into the history of how he had sought election as president in the past, lost on 3 occasions, went to the Supreme Court, also lost until the 4th attempt, and he won. Now he has been re-elected for a 2nd term, and that the major challenge for the governing All Progressives Congress is to ensure that the party remains strong and united even after he has left office. It appears that the action taken at an Abakaliki High Court will obviously amount to, in the end, an abuse of the court process. It is not the court that amends the Constitution. The process for recreating the Constitution is also spelled out there in the Constitution itself. And we have had a 4 series of amendments to the Constitution, and they followed, the normal process. We saw what happened, an attempt, for a 3rd term by Obasanjo.
Yes,
in 2005, when he organized the National Political Conference, and then the issues that came therefrom, and then the matter went to the Senate. Senator Ken Namani was then Senate President. He was our guest here, you remember, some weeks ago.
Mantu as his deputy.
Mantu as deputy. And then, of course, the whole proposal was shut down. The president has said, look, I'm not seeking a fourth term. And the question must arise, who is this busybody who is seeking the court, to alter the Constitution?
You see, what bothers me, and I'm sure many other Nigerians, is the fact that, look, it is not an issue to be brought up at this point in time when we're talking about development. We know that many sectors of our national life have been left ignored for a very long time. We are talking about how to provide water, electricity, and the other things of life. And somebody is talking about 3rd term. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to anybody. So people talk about 2023. You are in 2019 for land. You are interested in what happens in 2023 and begin to now take the president to come. I mean, it's unbecoming. Another issue you raised was that of Senate revisiting financial autonomy for local community. Very, very crucial to national development, because, of course, we know, Kingsley, we've had programs on local government, which have been comatose for over 2 decades now.
That is the only way to empower the 3rd tier of government.
Exactly.
If they will just be a shadow of the state government. The other interesting story...
Sorry, just before we leave that, you talked about the female politician who was burnt in her home. It's worrisome, because when you talk about law enforcement, law and other issues, the president has, through his spokesperson, expressed deep regret and sadness over that particular incident, and has now ordered the security agencies to ensure that those who are behind it are brought to book. Does it require the President of the Federal Republic to give the marching orders when a clear offense has been committed? Has any person been arrested?
It doesn't need a prompting.
That's the question to ask. And that is why we will continue to have challenges with the maintenance of law and order. Does the president have to give a directive? Does the governor have to give a directive? So if the president says don't do it, they will also not do it. That's not the spirit of the Constitution. You have an Attorney General of the state, who is empowered, or of the federation who is empowered, without interference from the executive branch, that is from, the president or the governor, to carry on their activities. Where are those persons who have been picked up in connection with this? And this is a lady who had a family.
And you're talking about Attorney General of the state. What about the police? The area that the event took place falls under the purview of a particular DPO. Yes. Right. So that is where the action should have started. Not even Attorney General. Because the arrest ought to have been made by the police.
Kieran, you didn't get me right. I said the context in which I used Attorney General or the DPP is for prosecution. You have first to arrest, investigate, take statements, develop your case file before, of course, you can then say that. Yeah, I understand. That's why I said maintenance of law and order. An offense has been committed. Has any person been arrested? The DPP doesn't arrest anybody.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying that the police ought to have started this, before now. Right. So
in a nutshell, he's saying that there shouldn't be any prompting before.
Exactly.
The other contrast here is another 68-year-old man in Jalingo who is counting his blessings. He was celebrating the gift that God has given him. He had 30 children, surviving children, and 70 grandchildren. His name is Madam Adamu Dodo, and he urged parents to ensure that they give proper upbringing to their children. And you know what? He's glad to show that the right example. Of all his children, 15 of them, and 15 of the 30 children, and 5 of the grandchildren are all university graduates. And he says that what he did, he was thanking God by celebrating that God has given him these children and he has succeeded in bringing them up properly. One of his grandchildren, 25-year-old, has also a graduate, is an architect now, a graduate of architecture, says that Baba always monitored them, made sure he was sure of the company they kept, and also made sure that they always attended their Quranic education. The Baba says he's very proud that all his children have memorized the Quran and they are hopefully going to be a beacon in the
Before you take the editorial, I'm sure you must have encountered the story on the social media. The story is also on page 39 of the Sun newspaper. And the headline is, UNN, that's University of Nigeria Nsukka, cancels witchcraft conference. But it's been raging, for some days now. And the story says that UNN has dropped the topic of the proposed international conference on witchcraft. It said the center that was organizing it had proposed to discuss witchcraft, meaning, factors, and practices scheduled to hold between the 26th and 27th. That's Tuesday and Wednesday this week. But the Vice Chancellor says that they should drop that issue of witchcraft, but all other aspects of the conference will proceed.
This is basically poor understanding of what the organizers meant from my own view, because they say it's an academic work.
Precisely.
It's an academic thing. They want to do a discussion on witchcraft, not necessarily bringing witchcraft and things like that. And the way Khan and other bodies reacted, of course, I said, well,
the university
exactly. It's an academic thing, but then you're the same.
It's like what we saw. I mean, the late Professor Sophie Oluwole, who was our guest a few times on Good Morning Nigeria, was an expert, in philosophy of witchcraft. If you don't interrogate those issues, how do you have a deeper understanding of it? You still leave it in the realm of speculation, in the realm of, shall we say, spirituality and just superstition.
Exactly. If there exists witches, for instance, if they exist, the conference would not stop them from doing what they are doing. All right. So
the only book says that you are dealing with several forces, principalities, and lower elements. Yes, and lower elements.
You need to know them and understand them.
And how you overcome them. You remember there was this superstition that followed First Act 77. When they brought Obasanjo, as a military government, brought First Act 77 to Lagos, all the witches, from Africa gathered in Nigeria, and ever since, we have been having issues with our development.
All right.
Those are part of this.
All right. We'll go to editorials, but just to note that an aspect we didn't actually delve into is that of directive by the president on Ajaokuta steel, which is a very big minus.
That was the first thing we discussed.
Yes.
Ajaokuta and the steel minerals.
Yes. Okay. Now, a harvest of good deeds. That's the title of this editorial. It's talking about President Muhammadu Buhari honored 2 Nigerians for their rare show of honesty and integrity.
Well, I think the editorial is written by Blueprint, and it's citing the instance, you remember, of Josephine Ugu, who discovered some dollars at the airport, the worker at the airport, and returned it. And it cited the instance of a Nigerian Air Force officer who also found 3,700 euros and returned it to the owner. This one happened just before the last Hajj exercise. And several other instances, another taxi driver who also found $2,400 and returned it. There is even a lady, and if you go by their names, they cut across Nigeria. Joseph Ugu, the other one, the officer was Bashir Umar. This other lady is Charity Bassi. And they are all exemplifying the integrity of the Nigerian. And what the editorial is saying that such persons should be recognized, and of recent the president gave award of integrity. He said that it's such people that deserve to be given recognition, and therefore the private sector should also support government, because this will serve as positive incentive for our youth to try to be honest and live a good life.
All right, Bayo, I would like to appreciate you for analysis this morning. Thank you. We hope to see you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Of course, our topic this morning is a very important one, talking about our ailing refineries. This is a nation that imports fuel, refined petrol. Stay with us.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Our conversation segment this morning focuses on how to revive Nigeria's ailing refineries. To set the tone for that discussion, let's listen to this background by our correspondent, Abdulsalam Jibril.
Nigeria, the largest oil and gas producer in Africa, has 4 major state-owned oil refineries. The Warri Refinery and Petrochemical Plant, commissioned in 1978 with an estimated refining capacity of 125,000 barrels per day. The new Port Harcourt refinery, commissioned in 1989 with an estimated refining capacity of 150,000 barrels per day. The old Port Harcourt refinery, commissioned in 1965 with an estimated refining capacity of 60,000 barrels per day, and the Kaduna refinery, commissioned in 1980. Unfortunately, with these refineries, Nigeria does not produce anywhere near an installed capacity of about 445,000 barrels per day, as the refineries put together currently refine about 20% of Nigeria's petroleum needs. Many have attributed the underperformance of the refineries mainly to neglect, corruption, and the lack of maintenance culture, which has been the bane of the Nigerian society. The poor operating capacity of the refineries is in spite of the fact that Nigeria has routinely spent huge sums of money on turnaround maintenance for the refineries at various times, yet local needs cannot be met, and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has had to rely largely on the importation of petroleum products, especially premium motor spirits, to meet the daily consumption needs of Nigerians. It is indeed worrisome that despite her rating as one of the biggest oil-producing countries in the world, Nigeria still imports petroleum products from countries like Brazil and India, which were nowhere on the oil map of the world when Nigeria discovered oil in Oloibiri in 1956. As part of the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Melekiari's cardinal programs, another rehabilitation of Nigeria's 4 refineries will commence in January next year. However, some Nigerians are canvassing for the privatization of the refineries towards ensuring optimal capacity and effectiveness. And with the Dangote refinery, with a capacity to process about 650,000 barrels per day, scheduled to begin operation next year, is privatization of the existing refineries or rehabilitation the way to go? Can Nigeria's refineries be effectively revived towards meeting the country's domestic needs, not to mention export? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be providing answers to these questions and more in the course of the program.
We thank you, Abdulsalam Jibril, for that background. Well, we have our guests already in the studio for the conversation, as well as one from Kaduna Studios. Now, first, I would like to introduce here in Abuja, Honorable Sergius Okun. He is a member, House Committee on Petroleum Downstream. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And we also have here in Abuja, in Kiruka Chidia Maduekwe. Of course, he's an energy and environmental policy specialist. It's my pleasure to welcome you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, still with us here in the Abuja studios, we'd like to welcome Eze Onyekpere. Onyekpere is Lead Director, Center for Social Justice. Pleasure to have you with us, and good morning.
Pleasure.
All right, from our Kaduna Network Center, we're being joined by Ede Mukhtar, who's a former General Manager of the Kaduna Refinery. Ede Mukhtar, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Good morning and welcome.
Okay, yeah, I think let's begin the conversation with our guests in the Kaduna Network Center. Ede Mukhtar is the former General Manager of the refinery located in that city. Just give us a sense. I mean, it's depressing listening to that background by our correspondent, and he did what we do know as laypersons. Why is it that our 4 refineries are the way they are, in a state of coma?
Thank you. With the background that we've just received, these refineries were founded at the various dates indicated. If you look at the history of those refineries, each of them, the first few decades, or even 2 decades after the establishment of those refineries, they have been working excellently well. They have also gone a long way to meet our national demands in the various petroleum products. And along the line, And even before then, most or almost all scheduled maintenances have been done as at when due, with little or no interference from any quarters, in spite of the fact that, these refineries are wholly government-owned. The government in those days respected the professionalism of the managers of these refineries, then the management of NNPC, to do turnaround maintenance and all scheduled maintenances as at when due, with little or no interferences. However, along the line, some unwholesome developments happen, some in court, because these complexes belong to the federal government. In this country, you'll agree with me that at a point in time, every Nigerian becomes a professional in one endeavor or the other, to the exclusion of those who have been trained over the years, who have been entrusted with the mandate to manage these plants. And so turnaround maintenances have been done, scheduled maintenances have been done until such a time that there were interferences with the decision of when to maintain a refinery, who to maintain a refinery, and what cost of money was required to maintain a refinery. And that's when we began to lose the whole trend. And that was actually the background or the foundation to the current problems we are having. These plants are large industrial complexes. Probably they're the biggest industrial complex in this country, and an amalgamation of huge equipment and pipelines under different pressures, under different heat and whatever. And we had actually the best cream, and we still do have the best cream of engineers to manage those plants. But when there are those interferences to decide when to do, who to do, and how much to spend, that's when we began to have those problems. And these are not issues that we just wish away. Once you do not do what was required to be done, then the problems begin to build up, and the consequences will begin to manifest and face us stuck into the face in the future. And this is probably what we are facing. Thank you.
Idi Mukhtar, I'd like to remain with you because you raised a very important points from your opening remarks. I'm not privileged to know the period that you served as the general manager of Kaduna Refineries, but what is certain is that you understand the concept of the usual turnaround maintenance that we've been hearing since the late 80s and early 90s. The case, you talked about interferences, perhaps from outside NNPC or the refinery authorities as to who does what with respect to turnaround maintenance. But from your experience, the turnaround experience that we're able to be successfully carried out, did they yield results with respect to ensuring that each time turnaround maintenance was carried out, that the refineries came up alive again and, of course, to optimum performance?
Yeah, I think if you look at the history of each of those refineries from the early days up to, for instance, if you look at Port Harcourt, the last turnaround maintenance was done in 2000, and that's a long time. And turnaround maintenance by schedule is supposed to be done after 24 months in the life of each refinery. And that meant either a whole shutdown or a partial shutdown to be able to maintain those equipments. Now, maintenance happens in the refinery on 24/7 basis, but major, maintenances, you have to shut down a whole unit or the entire refinery. But along the line, most of the terms that were done, as when they were due, yes, we witnessed a resumption of high operational capacity. If you look at, for instance, the history of each of those refineries before those times when, as I alluded, there were interferences. And it's a record that some of the refineries, I don't want to mention any particular, but I'm sure we know the history, that the governments then, at that time, literally took over the turnaround maintenance of those refineries. Yes, these are government properties, but people, managers, professionals were trusted to run those refineries on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria. In those days, I remember, turnaround maintenance never exceeded 45 days. And before any refinery could be shut down, either wholly or partially, for turnaround maintenance, enough product storage was achieved to last for those 45 days. It is still on record, if we go back to the history. Each of those refineries enjoyed those golden moments and were responsible enough to have done those turnaround maintenances as it went due. Initially, even before turnaround maintenance was even about, all the materials required was supply chain departments did their bit by making sure that all materials required were stockpiled, engineers were scheduled, each unit that was to have been opened for maintenance had a log, opened day one, there was a Gantt chart indicating that from the time you open to the time you finish and test, there were timelines that were locked, and these were achieved. At the end of the day, the entire refinery could be restarted up gradually. It takes a long period for you to start a refinery. It's not just like starting a car. So many the units had to be synchronized, and they come on stream, and the refinery now was back to work. Now, this we have been able to achieve before those interferences I'm referring to. Now, yes, I agree that there were issues, but those issues had their foundation, their sources from those interferences. Now, maintenance culture that has been alluded, yeah, there are post-maintenance cultures here and there, but as far as we're concerned in the refinery, and I do know that up till now, the level of commitment, the level of professionalism, the level of enthusiasm and zeal is still high, that people really are concerned about the state of this refinery. And once you don't do turnaround maintenance, and these equipments have to run, some of them are 380 degrees centigrade, under high pressure and temperature. They continuously run. If they do run for beyond 24 months that have been scheduled, that have been advised by the manufacturers, then issues will set in. You continually run, you are not getting the throughput as you require, you are not getting the performance percentage as required, as installed. Then these equipments begin to deteriorate. And meanwhile, the demand for petroleum products is there continuously. So you can see the issue here as one, yes, when was done, it's at when scheduled, we had the refineries back to normal performances. But if issues of maintenance are compromised, whether they're on day-to-day basis, weekly basis, or the term that we're referring to, then issues are bound to set in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eddie Mukhtar. We will return to you in the course of the conversation. And let's come back to Abuja, where we have three guests. Honorable Sergio Ogun was earlier introduced. He's a member of the House of Reps Committee on Petroleum Downstream Sector. He's also had experience as an oil services operative. We hear these stories. Refineries that are much older than our refineries are still working elsewhere around the world. What do you know about what has led to the state of our refineries that they are today operating, according to some reports, less than 20% installed capacity, or four?
Thank you very much. I think Mr. Eddie Mukhtar just spoke to the heart of the matter. Turnaround maintenance. I mean, I'm sure most of us go to London. You see this London underground train, the tubes. They are old. Most of them are over 100 years, but they're still running. Yeah. You know, so it's the typical Nigerian mentality of not maintaining anything. You build roads today, we will spend millions to commission it, bring out community, minister will fly in and everything, and there are no plans to maintain that road. I was in Germany some years back, and a Nigerian was driving me around. After 3 days or 4 days, I told the guy, I've been looking for a pothole in this country since I came. The guy said, I will disappoint you, you won't get any. He says, even there is a small crack, if they have to shut down that road, divert traffic to other routes, before you wake up, they will fix it. So that's the mentality we need to have in this country. We cannot build refineries, even NNPC headquarters here. I don't know the last time you were there. That building is not properly maintained. That's a physical building. So it's our mentality in this country, just build and walk away. And you cannot run a plant like that. Even flow stations is where you have maybe a flow station where you have oil wells, they run through there. That's the first point where you collect the crude oil and then they separate them before they start going to the terminals. From time to time, they shut them down to maintain. And then NPC staff told me that even the sanity we have in the oil and gas industry is from the upstream, because it's largely operated by the IOCs, the international oil companies. So downstream is gone. There was a motion last assembly, the 8th National Assembly, by my colleague from Edo State, Honorable Bede Hammer, on the losses the refineries are making. We debated it and nothing came out of it. Even the turnaround maintenance, there was a motion, simping. We discussed it and nothing came out of it. So the motion that came now, I don't know what is going to come out of it again. This will come to our committee. I don't want to preempt what actions we will take. So the bottom line is the maintenance. Even there was the privatization of the element petrochemicals built by the country. There was no turnaround maintenance. By the time the Indorama Group took over, they did maintenance, the turnaround maintenance. By the very first year, they started making profit. Well, when we were as a country, we were making losses. So you cannot build a gigantic plant like that and then be running it like a small keke napep. It's okay, the tire is okay, it's shaking, don't worry, we'll just go to one junction. Somebody once told me, a friend of mine from the US came, he brought his car, was driving it, he said the hub that was noise from there, he took it to a mechanic workshop. And the guy said to him, no worry, this is a small thing. So he went away with some friends, he came back, he saw the guy said they took banana. He said, put banana, he said, we'll put it there to be cooling it, and he told the guy, get out of there. So the mentality we have in this country that they just manage it and it doesn't work with plants. Even human beings. When I turned age 40 as CEO, I was told that as a CEO, you'll be doing your annual medical checkup as a CEO from age 40. That's the standard in the world. Do your annual checkup. That's for a human body because it's aging. So those plants, as far as I'm concerned, those refineries are gone. They are gone. It's too late to start talking about turnaround maintenance right now because we are making losses. So what we expect is for NNPC to tell us how much we are losing on those refineries. We cannot bring them back. I don't know how much time we have. I have only talked about privatization, but the stories we have about privatization is the ones that are not working. Let's talk about the ones that are working. Give these plants out. Maybe use the nice word, concession them. If anybody will agree to take them now, don't even ask for a dime. Take the liabilities. Give them the license. If they can bring them back in another 3, 4, 5 years, all well and good. But as they are right now, you cannot make anything out of it. I'm sorry to say. I have always said this. I talked about Nitel some years ago, even in the house. Where is Nitel today? We could have given that Nitel license to AT&T and say, don't pay us a dime, manage it. They will pay company tax. They will employ people, create jobs. Those ones will pay personal income tax. They will provide the service with their rich, just like NTA. With your rich, they'll provide the service. And that is very rich. But what happened to Nitel? Nothing. Same thing with the refineries. If you do that today, concession it. Don't even take a dime from them. They have the capacity to manage it. Come and then manage it. But like I said, I think it's too late. All right, Honorable, we've heard you, and from what you've said, it does appear that we have a poor managerial capacity in this country. Now you have posited that those refineries can no longer be brought back to life, but you also, suggesting concessioning it. Those who are going to get involved in it, what are they going to do with it? They still have to work hard to bring it back to life. So when it comes to not being properly managed because it's a government-owned, infrastructure, many Nigerians will, of course, doubt what the situation really is. Now, let's come to our sister here, Nkiruka Maduekwe. Nkiru, you've listened to the first speakers. What other causative factors would you position as why we have not able to bring back our refineries? Yet, as Kingsley pointed out earlier on, many older ones in other climes are functioning.
Thank you for having me. And the two speakers have brought out very cogent issues. Talked about the key word has been maintenance. I would want to disagree with something the Honorable said. He talked about privatization. I don't think that is actually the solution. No, sir, I don't think so. Yes, we have 4 refineries that are not doing well, but we tend to forget that Nigeria's population is increasing. Why should we limit ourselves to 4 refineries? Yes, Dangote has come on stream. Why can't other private individuals come on stream as well? I was looking at the Hydrocarbon Oil Refineries Act. It shows that you actually have license to have refineries. So why don't we have people that grant licenses to other people to have refineries? Now, there was that thing that happened, I think, between 2002, like late 2000 and early 2007, 2006, where people were given licenses to build refineries. But then there were issues on ground. What were the issues? Am I going to be given guaranteed the crude oil? Are there the infrastructures in place to make sure that my refineries work? You have to have other things like your road transportation and everything else. So for me, it's not just let's give away the 4 refineries. No, it's more than that. Build more refineries. But more as well is, I think the key question is, why are we talking about refinery? Why are we talking about reviving Nigeria's refinery? It's because we need the products, isn't it? And because we're thinking December is coming, there's going to be that long queue again, there's going to be all those issues we have.
That's not the reason.
But that is part of it.
It is not part of it.
How will I put it? You're talking about reviving Nigeria's refineries because there is deficiency in supply.
That's correct.
Isn't it?
Domestically.
Domestic deficiency in supply.
That's right.
How do you resolve that? Is it build more? Is it do time again for the ones you have? My take is build more. Have more people in the business. Do not privatize what we have. There is no need. Because you can say government is a bad manager. Okay, if we're going to privatize, then privatize everything government has, including NTA. Yes. If you think government is so bad a manager. But that is not the truth. What about India? We've heard when did India come on stream? Doesn't the Indian government has Indian government old refinery? Do you know what these people have done? Let's say, for instance, Libya. Libyan government did not only have domestic-owned government refineries, they also had refineries in other countries like the US and also Europe. They were actually controlling the European refinery markets. So why should we just be so tunnel-visioned and just look at one-way traffic? No. Nigeria needs to step up on her game. That means bring in, okay, if you say government, whatever you can do, bring in private investors. We're hailing Dangote 650,000 capacity. Hopefully, by God's grace, that's going to work. But you look at 650 plus already installed 445, which is not even working at all. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa. We can't even meet our domestic with 650. So we need more refineries. So let us stop focusing on the 4 or the additional one that Dangote is going to bring. And let us think about where the world is heading. Because you talk about reviving these refineries, but you tend to forget that come 2030, come 2040, the world is going to post-carbon. What is Nigeria going to do? You're going to be stuck with things that you don't even know the market you're going to sell it. So, for me, in addition to reviving Nigeria's refineries, what other alternatives can we bring on board to reduce that supply deficiency? That is it. That's why I was looking for that keyword.
All right.
So, sorry, we can have renewables. We can have biogas. The world, you talked about Germany, sir. Europe is going to hybrid. So you have cars that run on electricity and other fuels. the world is going to leave us behind. So we need to do other things. We should stop being tunnel visioned and look at other alternatives as well. That's my take.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Nkiruka.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot. I mean, the world is already moving towards electric cars, 2030, 2040. We're almost getting into 2020. So in the 10-year gap, Nigerian vehicles will not run on water. My colleague here is chuckling. Look, these are issues that you've always handled. What are we seeing here? The typical situation of not getting value for money, purportedly expended on turnaround maintenance, or it's just lack of national capacity to manage key infrastructure?
Let me start by saying that I quite associate myself with the views expressed by the last speaker that we are thinking like people left behind in time and space. Everybody is talking about Volvo is stopping the production of cars that run only on petrol. I think they've stopped that either this year or the next. And many countries from India to France to Germany, everybody is planning post the internal combustion engine. So we're even latecomers to begin to think of all these heavy investments of turnaround in our refineries. I will not support a situation where already scarce public resources, not even naira, in dollars and pounds and whatever, is further invested into assets that are sinking, like our refineries. I was reading a report that the total cost as at the end of these refineries was under 2 billion, was not more than $4 or $5 billion. But as at date, we spent more than $2 billion in turnaround maintenance. And those turnaround never turned the refineries around. Rather, it turned around the pockets of some of them who had no business, briefcase businessmen. We are giving turnaround maintenance. So it turned around their fortune and their pockets. So, in as much as I don't wouldn't like the tunnel vision of, privatization is the only way to go, we need to hands off, because this is clearly a governance challenge. You make somebody a minister of petroleum, or you give somebody to be the NPC chairman or managing director. He's not interested. He's looking for money that comes into his pocket. And evidently, there is nothing we can do as of today, if we want to tell ourselves the truth, to stop it. The only way we can stop it is to allow the private sector to come in. Just like he said, it's only a change of baton. But the important one that he even missed out is that we are putting a lot of pressure on our local currency, the naira, by bringing out a very heavy outlay of foreign currency every time to import petroleum, which we have in abundance here, only to refine it. So I will go headlong for privatization, full-scale privatization or concessioning. You will recall that when Obasanjo was about to leave, not just that one alone, there was a refinery he handed over either to the Dangote group. Oh, the whole Nigerian just spoke like I heard you say it. Oh, they sold our national patrimony. The workers there came forward and said, give us 6 months, we'll turn it around. That refinery is still where it is. So I used to be a very strong advocate to say, no, I don't want our national things to be taken into the hands of a few. But we must begin to tell ourselves the truth. Those who are managing these resources are not about to change. And we have nothing to do to compel them to change. So hand it over to people who are going to really turn them around, create more jobs, save the money we are using to import. We are creating jobs in foreign countries. You know, those refineries, we are creating jobs. The corporate income tax that will come to the country is not there. Personal income tax that will come is not there. So the most important thing is to plan on two fronts. Get these refineries back on stream, and also be thinking of these alternative new forms of energy. Because I'm even worried that I don't know how Dangote is planning to get back his money. Because the lifespan of a refinery that should get you back money for long will take him the next, it's not going to come out 5, 6, 7 years. It will take more than 10. And if everybody is now going for electric cars, and you've invested so much money, $10 billion, $12 billion, how are you going to recover it? So for me, privatization or concessioning is key, while we are still looking at alternative forms of energy. And I also think that in the House, when these matters come up, there have been so many public hearings, so many motions, and all of them are gathering dust on the shelf. I challenge those of you in the legislature to sit back and do a retreat, some soul searching. Why are we wasting time, quote and unquote, doing motions which nobody should obey? It should come to a time when we should come to shove that you say, we are representatives of the people. In 3 years ago, you spent $300 million, no result, turnaround maintenance. We said this, you ignored us. 5 years ago, we said a different thing, you ignored us, spent public money. You are not going to spend a dime without our approval. And you insist on that. Don't shake your head. That money, even an NPC, even if it is autonomous, it is government owned. And who is government? How do you do that?
Section 7, sub 5 of the NNPC Act.
Yeah.
They report, they carry their budget to Council of Ministers.
Yeah.
Not to the National Assembly.
No, but you made the law, right?
We should amend that first.
You are also in a position to amend the law. The kind of argument you're making is what entitles an NPC to do their so-called under recovery. Money that should come to the Federation account. Exactly. No, hold on. Yeah. That's an NPC Act. It's a subservient legislation. The Constitution is supreme. It is for you in the legislature to find the relevant sections of the Constitution to affirm the sovereignty of the people. Because this is what is allowing Nigeria to go to the, I don't know what the word to use. We were doing 35 million liters as the national consumption in about 4 or 5 years ago, we were told. And some of us were even skeptical. We thought that it was padded. The economy went into recession, factories closed, companies closed down, and thereafter, when there was massive loss of jobs, economic growth decelerated. And then an NPC came forward to say, oh, gentlemen, you are now doing 55, 60, 65 million liters. I said, where that thing has no empirical foundation. It is, I don't have to stay here to allege fraud, but I'm insisting what is happening is fraudulent. So these are part of the things why we elected you to go to the House, and not for you to say, oh, there is nothing we can do. If you find that the present state of law is not good enough, amend it. That's why you are there.
All right. I think, at the right time, you want to respond immediately? You want to respond immediately? Okay, go ahead. Sections 80 to 84 of the Constitution, 1999 as amended, gives the National Assembly the power to approve the budget and approve even expense of government. The Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007, same thing, sets out the modality for preparing of budget, Section 18, through the MTEF. Same thing with Section 21, sub 1 to 3. States how the government companies, corporations, and MDAs should prepare their budgets, hand over to minister, who will now give to president to lay and all that. That Section 7, sub 5 of NNPC Act is even an inferior act compared to the ground norm, the Constitution. One of my colleagues, who is an advisor to the Speaker today, Raf Nana Ibokwe, didn't come back to the House, an advisor to the Speaker today, at least in the 8th Assembly, tried to amend that, but it didn't get through second reading. Like what we said here the last time, too many interests. It didn't get through second reading. Okay. So that very act is at variance with the law of the land. So the point is, the way NNPC is being managed right now is not in the interest of every one of us here. It's not in the interest of Nigeria. It's a situation whereby you are giving the budget of that corporation, where we claim to have the money to run this country, to the president alone. So the control, when they come for their annual budgets, they come with like this number of papers that you are holding right now. And you ask them for details. Most times they don't even come back. Because they don't report to us. Like you said, we will amend the budget. Amend the Constitution. But it's not by saying it here. You have 360 in the House and you have 109 in the Senate. Well, from your postulations, it does seem, that you people representing Nigerians in some cases bringing in, personal interest in what should have been a national interest. And that is why we are today talking about 4 refineries that have been moribund for a very long time in a country that has the kind of resources that Nigeria has. And let's return to Kaduna, where Idi Mukhtar is. I'm so interested in asking you this question because you know it all. You were there practically, physically, and of course as an admin chief. during your days in the Kaduna refinery, and you tell us more. You've listened to all the other girls here, especially my sister here, Nkiruka, on what she put out. Now, we hear about modular refineries, which of course they say they come in modules, like they can also be mobile as well. These are smaller refineries. We also heard that about 47 or thereabout licenses have been issued for modular refineries. Now, in your view, can that address the issue that we have at the moment, which is, of course, that is being provided by the existing refineries? If we go modular, how far can it go? We also hear that about 2 or so of them will be on stream from maybe next year or something. So, what do you know?
Okay, before I delve into that, let me say here that without any fear of favor that without any fear that the Nigerian refineries are not moribund, and the impression created that they cannot come back is probably not all true. At the moment, this current government and the management of NPC are deeply committed. As we are speaking, a scoping is being done for Port Harcourt refinery for a rehab, and the other 2 refineries are also scheduled. After the Port Harcourt scoping is concluded, and maintenance activities are given. Actually, refineries do not die when you do due diligence maintenance. The oldest refinery in the world, in India, survived for more than 100 years. The youngest refinery in the US, large in terms of capacity, was built in 1977 in Louisiana. It is still working. Our refineries, by age, compared to other refineries in the world, are relatively young. The issue here is maintenance. Yes, there are issues. These are issues that you and I, Nigerians, need to address. If we want the refinery to work, the people in NNPC, the current management is committed, the engineers in all the refineries are committed, and there's the best cream of engineers we have. We have had issues of maintenance, but this current management is migrating away from TAM. TAM means a total shutdown of a refinery, when you are going to lose money and products for the duration of the shutdown. Now, a new concept that is today all over the world being applied is rehabilitation. You isolate, open up a small unit, repair it, and continue on that basis while other units are running. Remember that few refineries are set up just for PMS. There are a lot of other products that come out of those refineries. So just for the reason of PMS, you don't shut down other units that are also going to give you revenue. I think this is the impression I want to correct. About modular refineries, yes, modular refineries are there. It's been indicated 2 are coming up on stream in the next 1 or 2 years. These are refineries that could probably refine to 20,000 barrels per day. What impact are they going to cause, considering the consumption level in Nigeria today, considering the size and complexity of our economy? Yes, they are way out, but how many of those do you require? So I think, yes, once you create that enabling environment, modular refineries will come in. The Dangotes can also emerge as better players. But I think our best bet today is to focus on these 3 or 4 refineries and bring them up. It is much easier. I don't see the federal government having $12 billion again to invest in building new refineries. You require much far less than that to revive all the 4 refineries put together. And this is being done today by the current NPC management that is committed, is not doing TAM, it's a rehab, and the Port Harcourt refinery is first on the schedule. Now, once you create that enabling environment, many other players can come in. But let's also not forget that these refineries are a part of a system. You have to get the crude oil, transport the crude oil, refine it, and then pump it. So some refineries may be there waiting, ready to have crude oil, but the pipelines are an issue. We have 750 kilometers length of crude pipelines in this country. We have 4,400 kilometers of products pipeline. All these have been compromised by our attitude in this country of vandalism and vandalization. These are issues that are also affecting the performance of the refineries. Kaduna's is inland, is an inland refinery linked up by by product crude line from Wari to Kaduna over 600 kilometers. Even if Kaduna is ready today, you have to contend with managing those assets to make sure that the level of integrity is very high, they are not tampered with, and that crude can flow in to the refinery, products can flow out into the market. So yes, that environment is key, but let's look at also other issues. Let's also look at the other issues. We are Nigerians, we are the ones that are responsible for this. Look at that infrastructure I've just mentioned about. The level, the incidences of vandalism are quite high, to the extent that today, the greater attention of resources of NNPC management is geared towards getting a best security model to monitor and manage those pipelines away from looking at the refineries themselves. So the problems are huge, not insurmountable, but we need to appreciate that yes, people are there, they are doing their best to manage this and make the refineries work. The issue of privatization yes, it is there, it's an option. If the National Assembly feels so, if the government feels so, yes. But let's ask ourselves, the companies that were privatized some few years back, are they working at what capacity? How many jobs have they created? So for me, the issue here is, yes, the refineries are there. They have issues, just like any other industrial complex or any other national endeavor. Somebody mentioned our roads, mentioned our bridges, mentioned our airlines, mentioned our telecommunications, and the rest of them. These refineries are the best option Nigeria has today, and they can be repaired. They are young in terms of age. The management is committed. We have the best team of engineers to manage this. And I tell you, once Port Harcourt rehabilitation is over, I assure you Port Harcourt will hit 80 to 90% performance. Thank you.
All right, Ede Mukhtar, thank you very much. I'm tempted, Kyria, to stay with him and just ask him another question. We know the other guests have been somewhat shortchanged in this conversation, but we're going on a short break now. But just before we do, I think that Nkirika and Eze, you listen to him. Now, when the argument always comes up that, look, the rest of the world is moving towards the post-hydrocarbon age, and here we are stuck with refineries. We do know that a refinery generates multiple products, and it isn't just petrol, no AGO. I mean, you also have aviation fuel, you have petrochemicals, plastics, and and all kinds of things that come out of a refinery. That's one issue that is addressed. But there's another one that I would like to raise with him when we come back from this short break. All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, live for the network service of the NTA. Let's return to Ede Mukhtar, former general manager of the Kaduna Refinery and our guest at Kaduna Network Center. One issue that has come up in this conversation, and which we all generally tend to allude to, is the governance challenge in terms of maintaining the refineries. A couple of years ago on this program, we had a gentleman who joined us from our Lagos Network Center. He was, according to him, simply manager of Warri Refinery. And at that time, in the 70s, I believe, the refineries ran very well. Is it necessarily the case? Because earlier you were talking about interference and maintenance schedules, and maintenance costs, and all of that, that when we now enlarge the management of the refinery to have boards, you have a chairman of the board, you have directors, you have all kinds of persons for each of the 4 refineries. We then started having challenges. And yet, when you had just a person identified as manager of a refinery, who was the CEO of that refinery, say in Warri, for instance, things worked properly.
Yeah, it did work because then the country, the nation, the governments then respected professionalism and allowed the managers as they were to run the refineries as best as they could. Now, over the years, the governance structures have changed, and government came closer to the refineries. Because if you look at, for instance, the commanding heights of the economy, NNPC stands out. That's probably what supports the Nigerian economy. And by that I mean most government patronages, were directed to NNPC as at that time. or petroleum resources, as the case might be. So the issue here is that people had their spending authority, they had their powers, they had demanded, and they had that sense of responsibility to discharge. That golden period referring to, yes, we met it in NPC, but along the line, those issues were eroded. Now, once they were eroded, the refinery manager was now battling. You had a refinery to maintain, to run, and supply products, not only PMS. You had a number of other products that probably could go into in a short while, but the interferences were there. Term was due after 24 months. Then you sit down, invite contractors, let them bid, you stockpile your materials, and you start opening up your equipment. After 45 days, your refinery was almost brand new. You start the startup process, and you continue, and the process, the refinery is back to life. But that's not what we have today. Now, when we miss that golden opportunity, a lot of things set in. Equipment that was supposed to be changed after 24 months, we are now reaching probably 50, 60, 72 months. And you still expected those equipment to run well and give you the process you require as installed by as recommended by the manufacturer. So the whole those issues were compromised. Today, yes, we have these issues of maintenance. Maintenance is going on. I can tell you a lot have been achieved in all these refineries. But the resources and the attention required is scarce because the management are being pulled in different directions. So the management came up with a program to supply the required petroleum products into the country. At least that would have been assured. And in the last 3 to 4 years, we've not had any fuel scarcity in the country. That is kudos to the NPC management and a bigger kudos to the current government. They have been able to do that. But in the meantime, the management has not been idle. We are still nostalgic about those golden years. And I assure you, the current management in NPC, with the steady but sure-footedness that they are addressing the rehab issue, starting with Port Harcourt, those golden years will come back. Somebody alluded to, Element Petrochemicals that have been privatized. Element was privatized not because it was moribund, not because it was working. It was the powers that be that decided to privatize the refinery. It was almost brand new. How old was it when it was privatized? We need to ask those questions. If the same due diligence given to EPCL, as it was known to then, is given to these other refineries, I tell you, they will perform well, break even, and have profit. That is possible. But as we say it, for instance, if you look at this, the configuration of those refineries, each one is going to give you a number of other products. In Kaduna here, for instance, aside from PMS, it's the only refinery that gives you bitumen. It has LPG capacity. It has aviation fuel, that is ATK, and other products. We are not talking about those ones. But once a refinery is shut down, because there is that symbiotic relationship, most of these other products, most of these other feedstocks come from the crude oil that you crack and process and send to them. There is also that issue of kerosene and tin and drum. All those installations are there. But once the mainline refinery suffers any setback, these other areas are also going to suffer. So yes, those golden periods were there. We are nostalgic about it. But steadily, the current management is bent on reviving these refineries one after the other. And
all right, Idi Mukhtar, you've spoken so well about your constituency, but you've made your point earlier on that there were interferences along the line from perhaps government officials at the time. We wouldn't know whether such interferences are still ongoing, because you made us to know and believe that that really, brought a cog in the wheel of progress with respect to turnaround maintenance, which, of course, nearly brought the refineries to their knees. And that, you said, was also corroborated by Eze here, who noted the briefcase businessmen, who were also part of the problem that our refineries, have today. All right, now let's return to Abuja and turn to Ms. Maduekwe here. Now, you try to provide solutions initially, as what should be done by now. I mentioned modular refineries, which are smaller refineries that can be, scattered all over the Federation, at least for us to see how we can take care of our domestic supply. Now we're rounding off this program gradually. What else do you want to add to what you said earlier on, with respect to, of course, what we've had from Idi Mukhtar?
You've talked about the modular refineries, and I'll still go back to the need. I cannot but stress on that point. We want to be able to close the gap, supply deficiency. We have to look at other alternatives, and that's the gospel truth. Yes, other things come out from refining of fuel. We have to stop being, like he talked about those glory days. You know that Nigeria was actually exporting refined products in the 1970s. She was actually exporting because our refineries were working. I think what we can do, because you talked about consortium, PPP, public-private partnerships, to be in charge of the turnaround maintenance. So perhaps that might actually reduce those interferences he touched on. And like I've always been saying, look at other alternatives. We were talking about biogas. I think there's been that structure in place to have biogas. How can we do that? How can we have other things that we can use apart from kerosene, apart from petrol? So that's what I would say.
Well, I just, Eze, I know you want to chip in here, but when earlier Nkiruka was talking about, look, the need to expand the supply base by getting more players coming. If you recall, in this country, and gentlemen, I'm sure we all remember this argument, that when licenses were issued to private investors to build their own refineries, the argument they always made was that, they wanted total deregulation of the downstream sector, total deregulation. Dangote did not wait for total deregulation of the downstream sector before he started his plant in Lagos. Eze?
Now, I think that we need to do first things first. We are driving a jet. We are attempting to drive a jet with a Volkswagen engine. Now, this sector needs a whole lot of reform, which is where all the issues around the PIGB, whether it's the administration, whether it's the governance, whether it's the fiscals, whether it's the community and environmental issues. We've been on this idea of the PIGB for so many years, over close to 20 years. So what is holding us back? I recall the 8th National Assembly did pass that bill and sent it to the president, and he declined assent. I'm also informed that there were some issues, inconsistencies arising. But if the political will was there, those things could have been hammered out over 1 or 2 or 3 meetings and then gotten back to the National Assembly, and then the president finally signs. Look at a company like the Saudi Arabian oil company, that Aramco was going to the market to sell off just a few percent of its shares, and it's worth trillions. And that this is a company that returned over $100 billion to the Saudi Arabian government, more profitable than Apple and all the big American giants. So what happened to our own company? And until we come to that situation where we have this whole reform package together, because there are even pertinent questions. You are selling fuel at 145 naira, and you have it out there that the landing cost is more than that. So assuming Ezonyekbere had money to build a refinery, at what rate am I going to sell? Assuming I produce at 160, and the official government approved price is 145, are you going to extend, NMPC is collecting directly? Is there any form from where I can recoup the cost and make my profit? Even Dangote, we are hearing that he's threatening to export. Is Dangote going to finish and start selling at a loss? So we must do these reforms. These policies must be there for an investor. You don't tell an investor to have faith, to believe, just believe, put down your $10 million, just believe it will come back to you. That doesn't happen. Other countries nearby, Ghana, Angola, have all reformed their own processes. So until we do this reform, we'll still be telling these stories, we are going to do this, we are going to do that.
Yeah, but in the meantime, what do we do with our 4 refineries? Now, of course, President Buhari was in Sochi, in Russia, and negotiated with the Russians, who said that, okay, they might take an interest in helping revive our refineries. Now, he also was in Saudi, and then Aramco said, okay, fine, they might have an interest in helping us do this. Now, assuming All of these MOUs materialize, and we have the refineries working. For how long can we sustain that?
No, sir.
Yeah.
We don't need the Russians, maybe a state-owned company in Russia coming to revive NPC, or the Saudi Arabian state-owned company. What I'm saying is that the governance structure at home, it's just like you give the pig, buff it with tetmosol and a very distant and still allow it. It goes back to the dirty environment. That governance structure that allows contracts worth billions of naira to be awarded without a minister of state even being in the knowledge is still going to make those turned around refineries unprofitable in the next 6 months or 1 year. We will not get back the money. So hand it over to those who know how to run business.
All right, thank you. Honorable Ogun, as a member of the House Committee on Petroleum Downstream, you're well in the know what the situation is at the moment. And you do not believe in reviving the refineries. No, you would rather suggest outright sale or concessioning, as the case may be. And talking about the engineering methodology or the process of refining fuel, it's not a rocket science kind of science or technology, as the case may be, because even the guys in the creeks, are refining crude, in their very crude way of doing that. So it means that if refining is taken very seriously, you don't need a Saudi Arabian engineers or Russian engineers to come down and have to do it, because we have the capacity when it comes to technological know-how. What we may not have is the infrastructure, or rather, the tools with which to use to do it. Now, do we require a legislation to acute issue that we raised, that is reform in the sector?
Thank you very much. We need to take NNPC away from government completely. The way the Nigerian shipping line died, Nigerian Airways died, NNPC would have been long gone, if not for the downstream. I said that initially, if not for the upstream. Because it's been catalog of losses in the downstream. And we know the reason. The human beings working in NNPC are good guys, like Idi Mukhtar would say. Well, like you rightly referred to him, is this constituency. We don't have a problem with the Nigerian engineers working there. It's just the system. Tell me which part of the world today that you see have government running refineries? It's largely private business. So if we begin to do government here, we will not see, okay, now the president has gone to sign all manner of agreements. So a few years ago, those that manufactured this plant, they tried to bring them back. The bill they gave was even higher than the cost of building new ones. Then Kachuku, while he was shooting and looking for solutions, one time said, we're going to have new refineries in the old existing ones. So build new ones in these ones. So I understand what he's trying to say. So that we can share facilities, those pipelines coming in and some of the plants. But did any of that work? They didn't work. So the point I'm making, we need to take NNPC completely away from government. Then that's where we can have sanity in this industry. Put it on record today. Whatever Edi has said, I will not agree with him. Those refineries cannot come on stream the way they are right now. They cannot. We have heard it severally. Oh, we're going to do that. Even at a point, they say, okay, the Nigerian engineers will not be the ones doing the turnaround maintenance. Monies were pumped in. Where's the result? As long as they are doing this, what's it called? Subsidy. Do you know how much has been spent on subsidy? As long as that money is there, there's no turnaround maintenance that will. These 4 refineries will not work. Give licenses people to build refineries, and that's the way forward.
Are you saying they should then remove the subsidy?
Of course.
Liberalize it. No, you talked about deregulation, which is also the same thing you just said. But you cannot say remove subsidy when you have not put in place things to buffer what people are going to suffer from.
What you are calling subsidy?
I disagree with you about selling or removing NNPC from government. I totally disagree.
Why?
What is Aramco?
No, why?
What is Aramco?
Because
they are going public. Okay, so they are going public. Yes. Are you saying that there is no government-owned what do you call it?
A small fraction.
There is no other government-owned? No,
there are government-owned refineries in other places.
Let us stop thinking the solution is privatization. No. There are many ways to kill a rat without spilling blood.
Okay.
It just simply means there are many ways to do things without those issues.
We can drown the rat.
We agree it's a governance challenge.
What
And
about PDP?
hold on. That governance challenge is that there are some people up there who we are not in a position to change.
You're not in a position to change.
We are also not in a position to call them to order if we must call a spade a spade.
Come on. You have a
So and you can't compare the behavior of those.
But time is of essence here now. You know, please. We understood your point.
Very briefly. Subsidy. Yes, very briefly.
It is insane to be subsidizing consumption where production is going on in a foreign country.
Inefficiency.
If we must subsidize, like if we have the Dangote refinery or anything, we can subsidize production locally, not to subsidize jobs out of Nigeria. So as far as I'm concerned, that subsidy is the reason why we jump from 35 to 65. Because people are making money out of it.
Many governments have tried removal of subsidy. I know what we got. Let's not go to that. That's another topic. That's a topic for another day.
All right. Okay, just to let you know, we have had a number of tweets that have come in from our viewers. These are usual reactions from our viewers. Kirian, we know that we are expecting some more tweets. They're just getting them through the crucible. Let's take the ones we have already.
Yes.
Festus Akimboye has this tweet. The money we are spending on maintaining our refineries is putting water in a basket. It's time to build mega refineries like those in the Middle East and Asia. But what he hasn't said is who will build those refineries, who will own them, and who will run them.
Oh yeah, Kwame Dalaji Ngala, federal government should invite experts from the country outside towards reviving the refineries, and we need more refineries in the country.
Abdul tweets, government after government has kept talking about reviving our refineries without concrete action. I suggest a public-private partnership arrangement should be in place, and serious investors should be made to participate in their revival.
All right, the Law Alpha C.
But if they participate, I mean, what would be their stake? Would that not amount to some concession in?
It has to be negotiated. Yes. Everything is it can be negotiated. Now, Law Alpha C, with the transparent and patriotic outlook of this administration, the refineries are sure to be revived as the economic and social importance cannot be overemphasized. Also, government should be wary of the many illegal refineries dotting the nooks and crannies of this country. This should be the reason why attempts to revive the refineries were frustrated.
Titus Mondenok, when have our refineries undergone turnaround maintenance? They are all overdue. Also, none of our refineries, power plants, feeds energy to its host community or into the national grid, even though some have the capacity to do so. The refineries ought to be a source of power generation, which is true.
Yes, Chris Simeon says it is very shameful at this stage we are still importing fuel. What is happening to our refineries and the petrochemical plants? The demand is increasing every day, and NNPC should work harder and revamp our refineries. God bless Nigeria.
Dele Jack Solomon, the refurbishment of the refineries in Nigeria had been stalled by a variety of factors, including investor uncertainty, security issues, and the vagaries of the international oil market. Engaging the private sector towards increasing refining capacity may be easier to achieve than doubling oil production. I don't know, how did the vagaries of international oil market affect refining? I mean, Dele Jack Solomon always sends in his tweets, but he has raised more questions than he has tended to profile solutions to in this. I just hope that we can get a second set of tweets before we call it time on this conversation. But exactly, what are we looking at? Look, the government is said through the NNPC that next quarter first time of next year, which is to say by end March of 2020, they would have gone, some milestones with regard to turning around those refineries, which are, according to some estimates, now functioning at about 20% installed capacity, if not less. But even then, would that solve the problem? I'm asking this question because Idi Mukhtar, who was in Kaduna, I was at the Kaduna refinery in December 2013, and that refinery had been turned around and it was functioning. But only a couple of years later, the refinery went back again into sleep mode. So what is the guarantee that if this latest action, about which you are so enthusiastic, works out, that those refineries will not get back again into hibernation very quickly?
news is that the FCC has been upgraded, it's been revamped by the manufacturers, and there's feedstock for the FCC to come on live. But that wouldn't take long because there's no crude supply to Kaduna at the moment. And these are the issues, again, we need to address. Like I said, you don't airlift crude. And in this country, we only have one mode of transporting crude, and that is through the pipelines. There are many other options that we can begin to look at. If for refinery, for instance, like the one in the hinterland, like Kaduna, is going to work and work continuously. One option is to look at transportation by rail. There's a rail line up to inside the refinery, both for delivery and for evacuation. We also look at a combination of maybe river transportation through the River Niger up to Lokoja, where probably you have a barrow port, and then from there it is easier now to pump it from Lokoja to Kaduna. We've looked at all those options, and all these are on the table, and I think the carry management is studying that. But for Kaduna, it is ready to come back to life. Like I said, FCC have been revamped, and that's the most critical unit in producing all the other products in Kaduna refinery.
All right, Idi Mukhtar, we would like to appreciate your contribution this morning on the program. We just hope that as optimistic as you are, that action, that will be matched with action for those who are responsible for that, so we can have the refineries revamped. Thank you very much for being part of our show this morning. And of course, back here in Abuja, we'd like to also appreciate Eze Onyebere, who is a lead director, Center for Social Justice. It's been nice talking to you this morning. And Nkiruka Chida Madwekwe, we'd like to also appreciate your contributions. You know, you want